Welcome to the latest episode of Sex and the Shitty, a spitefully critical review cum recap of 90s television phenomenon and frequent 13th reason why, Sex and the City, starring Carnival of Misery Carrie Bradshaw. I'm the Crusty Fox, creator, host, and the real reason that Sarah Jessica Parker and Kim Cattrall hate each other. Aging about as well as a 1970s TV presenter's legacy this week are moments like this.
Eat me.
This.
Eat me.
And this.
Eat me.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around until the end for the question round. To the shock of exactly nobody, Carrie's affair with Big isn't panning out the way she'd hoped, with the star ranking of their chosen hotels plummeting faster than a guy on crutches at an ice rink. Seemingly in search of some punishment by proxy, Carrie decides to tell Miranda what she's been up to. A surprisingly mellow Ms. Hobbs takes it quite well, probably looking past the immediate situation and judging her likelihood of one day being able to dispose of Big in an acid bath as rising exponentially. Remembering that not everything can be about her mission to one day top the FBI's most wanted, she does get Carrie to promise she'll end it with Big. But we all know by now that healthy decisions are to Carrie Bradshaw what Child Protective Services are to YouTube family channels. Elsewhere, Samantha's out on the hunt in a new Manhattan hotspot when she bumps into Tom Ramey, the male version of her. His lightning-fast, indecent proposal leads to this response from Samantha.
Under a minute, you could qualify for the Olympics.
Something she hopefully won't be repeating later as she hunts for a Tide-to-Go pen. Back at Tom's place, he introduces her to his swing, and I don't mean the kind you keep in the backyard. Unless you've got very understanding neighbours or live in a commune of some kind. In a rare and capital L for her sexual sensibilities, however, Tom's questioning forces her to admit that she's never had an STI test. Reluctantly, Tom tells her that the cost of admission to his legendarily first-class fairground ride is some probing of the medical variety. At brunch, a worried Samantha admits that she hasn't been tested for HIV in particular because she's terrified of what the results might say. Looking for reassurance, she asks the others if they've been tested, which they all have. Well, technically Charlotte doesn't answer, but I assume any invading viruses are goose-stepped out of her serpent socket by white blood cells with tiny toothbrush mustaches. Back home, while her friend's fretting about her status, Carrie does the expected and makes it all about herself. She witters on about wishing there was a pamphlet to advise on risky relationship behaviour, as though cheating on your boyfriend might in some reality be a kind of bonding ritual. Pretending, as she has done all along, as though her infidelity was some involuntary act like sneezing, or orgasming if you see Pedro Pascal in public, her headline reads, "Is sex ever safe?" Later, Miranda has a new experience as she walks past a blimpie, where a man in a full-body sandwich costume creepily instructs her to
Eat me.
Excuse me?
Perhaps this is the menfolk of New York testing whether disguising themselves as a Hoboken hero might throw off her murderous instincts long enough for a spot of sexual harassment. Meanwhile, at Samantha's recommendation, Charlotte hires a minion to find her a wedding dress. None other than raging stereotype Anthony Marantino.
Sure.
He chaperones her to a Vera Wang showroom.
You want wedding? You go Wang.
I assume in the hopes that they have a sideline in literal accessories. After viewing a series of options, which like every gay man with a superiority complex, Anthony reacts to like they're a guy with a BMI over 20,
Sure.
Charlotte finally spots the one. An overpriced A-line with minimal interesting features. Like bride, like dress, I suppose. Across town, Samantha's at the clinic getting her oil checked. Her inability to instantly reel off how many times she's soaped the weasel appears to shock her nurse, which seems unlikely. Prolific porking is not going to faze a medical professional, unless it's accompanied by you waddling into the exam room backwards with a bacterial culture visibly evolving over the top of your jeans. On another trip past Blimpies, Miranda gets more seedy sexual suggestions from the resident meatball sub out front. Except this time she catches a glimpse of the offending hoagie's face through the costume and realises that he might be hot. Let's just put it out there, shall we? Someone's highly subjective level of physical attractiveness does not grant them a license to verbally abuse.
Imagine you're a fluttering kite.
unless the perpetrator is Pedro Pascal and the victim is me.
I'm your daddy.
Just putting it out there. After having the shits put up her by an insensitive warning from Miranda about bad news being delivered in private rooms, Samantha nervously awaits her test results at the clinic. She takes her clean bill of health straight round to Tom Raimi's and enjoys a well-earned, property-damaging ride on his fun fare of fornication. Over at the Gross Hotel, currently hosting Big and Carrie's gravy swapping, she's, for the second time, mistaken for a lady of the night by a businessman.
How much?
Scandalised, she ditches Big in the lobby. And hats off to that travelling pervert, as who should Carrie immediately bump into outside the hotel but Charlotte. When Big slithers out a second later, Ms. York suppresses what must be a violent gag reflex and the urge to paper cut them both to death with bridal magazines. FYI, their not-so-anonymous hotel location was on 56th and 8th, but there doesn't appear to be one there anymore if there ever was. There is a place nearby called 212 Smiling Cosmetic Dentistry though, which might be worth keeping in mind for later. When Carrie chases her down to her mid-move apartment, Charlotte finally actually confronts Ms. Bradshaw with the truth. Whereas Samantha and Miranda's differing advice boiled down to Carrie doing what was best for her, Charlotte offers some context. What if someone did to her friends what Carrie's doing to Natasha?
I'm getting married in 3 weeks. How would you feel if someone did this to me?
I would kill them.
Charlotte, of course, knows that this is unlikely at best. She had to risk vehicular manslaughter to distract Trey from stamp collecting and what I assume to be a still active breastfeeding schedule with his mother. The best bet for any woman trying to seduce him now is to have a heart attack and hope there's time to scrawl something suggestive on her chest in lipstick before being wheeled into his operating room. 1 week after her last encounter with the Blimpy Man, Miranda hits rock bottom when she deliberately walks past him again, all dressed up for the occasion. She gets him to reveal his face, which looks concerningly young to me, but it's his profession that bothers Miranda rather than any potential jail time. Snobbishly deciding that a lawyer could never let a sandwich stick his 6-inch Italian in her oven, she walks away. For plot reasons, being spotted in one of NYC's thousands of hotels translates to Carrie and Big as making all of them off limits. After yet another nauseating poon plundering, this time at Big's apartment, Carrie feels bad. Not for chewing on another woman's gummy worm, of course, but for herself and how the whole thing makes her look. She's stunned into a rare moment of silence when Big reminds her that the only reason he hasn't asked Natasha for a divorce yet is because she told him not to. Which makes her whole victim mentality thing about as successful as Shane Dawson's comeback. And that's comeback in the returning from obscurity sense, as opposed to anything he might get up to with his cat. When Big leaves for work, Carrie does what any sane, empathetic person would do in this scenario and creeps around the apartment eating leftovers, taking inventory of the life she's in the process of ruining. Thankfully, Karma's had enough of waiting and sends Natasha home early to interrupt this low-effort stalking. Later, at the hospital, Big turns up and instead of going straight to see his injured wife, decides to sit with Carrie a while and chew the fat. Because he's a spineless, worthless trash bag. After thoroughly destroying a marriage, but otherwise escaping scot-free herself, she decides now is the appropriate time for her to end things between them for good. With that, she leaves him to what I'm sure is going to be a pleasant and uplifting conversation with his soon-to-be ex-wife, her recently reduced lineup of teeth, and new involuntary whistle. The lesson here being that everything is absolutely fine so long as Carrie doesn't have to deal with the consequences of her actions and can keep pretending that things she consents to are also somehow beyond her control. Or what we might refer to these days as being a member of the Kardashian-Jenner family. Back in the real world, last week's top comment came courtesy of Redneck Lover 22, who recommended a time-honoured solution for any malady. A drink, a snack, and a whack. Genius. This week I'm asking, would you f*** a sandwich? And no, I'm not going to specify whether I'm talking about a guy in a costume or a Big Mac. Answers in the comments below please, and the best will harass you in the street next time. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, if you can't be good, be crusty.
Sure.